The 2022 NFL Draft is full of stars and full of stud players who are going to take over the next level of football. Going into 2021, Michigan had a couple players that people were excited about. Daxton Hill and Aiden Hutchinson were both seen as potentially first-round picks, and both of them are likely going to hear their names called in the first 2 rounds, as Hutchinson could go number 1 overall. The guy who came out of nowhere is a dude by the name of David Ojabo, but if you take a look at his story to get to this point, you'd never think he would be here, and the fact that he had the kind of year he had is pretty amazing. He went from someone who was not on draft radars to a potentially top 10 pick. Unfortunately though, we found out some terrible news as at his pro day workout, he got hurt, and now some things are in jeopardy. In today's video though, I want to introduce you to who David Ojabo is, why he is seen as such a tantalizing pro prospect, and how this injury could affect his draft stock and his career going into the future. So, without further ado, let's just get started with today's video. So to start out the David Ojabo story, we need to go over to Nigeria. That is where he would spend the first 7 years of his life before his dad would get a job in Scotland. Ojabo was always an extremely athletic kid, and he took up soccer, basketball, volleyball, baseball, and even rollerblading. He apparently dominated in every single thing he did, and he had dreams and aspirations of playing sports at the highest level, but he would have to do something drastic. He came up with a plan to go to the United States. He was just 15 years old, but he decided to jump across the pond to go to Blair Academy and play both basketball and soccer. Yeah, no football at this time, he was a basketball and a soccer player. I guess he just wasn't good enough, or Scotland didn't prepare him well enough, so Ojabo as a junior decided to play a different sport. He walked into the coach's locker room and asked if he could put on the helmet and become a football player. Despite the lack of experience, the coach saw this guy as an athletic freak, so he said yes. By the time Ojabo had left Blair Academy, he had 35 college offers. Yeah, he had saved his career and found a good path after all. His final 5 schools included Ohio State, Michigan, Texas A&M, Penn State, and Notre Dame, but he eventually chose the Wolverines. It was for a couple of reasons. He said, quote, "It's just everything about it. They are a top 3 business school in the country, and they are top notch at football. Everyone knows that, and then they have a legendary coach by the name of Jim Harbaugh, and then they have their defensive line coach Greg Madison, and defensive coordinator Don Brown. I figured it would be the best fit for me, and I feel that they want me as much as I want them. It's not a one-sided thing. I felt like they were being real with me, and I felt it with my gut." Michigan had a reason for wanting him. Ojabo was ranked as a 4-star recruit, the number 19 defensive end, and the 314th best player in the class of 2019, and at 6'5", he would have the potential to dominate in the Big Ten if he could just put it all together. But it was a slow start for him. After not playing in 2019, he would register 1 total tackle in 2020. This was pretty rough on him, and honestly, he thought about transferring to a different school, and he started to question everything he had done. The coaches did rally him though, and he put it all together, got to work, and eventually blew up in 2021. While Aiden Hutchinson got all the attention, Ojabo was quietly flying up draft boards and making his impact at Michigan as well. In their win over Washington, he recorded his first sack of his career, and then a couple weeks later on the road against Wisconsin, he had a career game. He finished with 7 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. This helped them beat the Badgers 38-17, and then the following week, he made a big sack in a win over Nebraska. A couple weeks later against Michigan State, he would have 2 sacks, and this would really start to put his name on draft boards, but unfortunately the Wolverines lost by 4 to the Spartans. They would get it together though, and after beating number 2 Ohio State, while there, they would destroy number 13 Iowa 42-13, and Ojabo was now seen as a potential top 10 pick. But why? Well, he finished with 35 tackles, 11 sacks, and 5 forced fumbles. This guy had a knack for finding the ball, getting to the quarterback, and making big plays in big moments. Because of how well he played, he became a second-team All-American and was also a first-team All-Big Ten selection. He'd entered the 2022 NFL Draft and was seen as a lock to go in the first round. But today we found out some terrible news, as on March 18th, he got hurt at their pro day. According to reports from the NFL media, he was found clutching his left leg after a pass rushing drill and had to be helped off the field. In sports, we see a lot of injuries, and sometimes things look scary and people bounce back right away, but other times we see these injuries drastically affect their careers. We saw Jamison Williams go down in the national championship game, and while he'll still likely be a first-round pick, his status has dropped from a top 10 selection to potentially out of the first round. An injury can change everything, especially for a player who relies on their athleticism. Ojabo is one of those players. We don't really have a lot of information right now, but if he did end up hurting his knee, I would say his stock could fall out of the first round. This would obviously not be good for him, and hopefully it wouldn't have too much of a long-term effect on his career. Either way, David Ojabo has a great story, coming from Nigeria to having 1 tackle in 2020 to now a potential first-round selection. Hopefully he is all good, and we'll tear it up at the next level. But for right now, there is a reason to worry. What do you guys think though? If you're a Michigan fan, what do you think of David Ojabo? Who is your favorite player in the 2022 NFL Draft? And what topic should I cover in my next video? Be sure to let me know down below. Subscribe if you have not already. Smash that like button to support today's video, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.